This has not been your position before. When Manchester City are concerned, you have said you need to find a way. You've said you need to find a way. Like, if they're going to put up 99 points, you put up 100. If they're going to put up 100, you put up 101.
I get you. I've not finished establishing my point.
Please, okay. I'm sorry because I'm listening to you and I'm waiting for you to say what I've heard you say before. It's like, I need Chuck to stand on business, even though it is Orlando Pirates, the team that he supports. It's a new month. It is still tour front coming through. My name is Jay and I'm with Chuck. Chuck, what up, what up?
All good, brother, all good. As you said, it's those rare occasions have not quite happened where both Pirates and United won, but at least we held out to City. We played all right. Yeah, I'm good.
Did you say where both Pirates and United won?
It hasn't quite happened where it's one of those rare occasions where they both have won, but we fared quite good enough, I guess, in the derby. I guess. We'll get to the Manchester derby and that fallout. But to begin with, Chuck, local football, and we begin with a local legend, right? Noko Matlou, who retired after a match against Malawi. After 175 odd caps for Banyana Banyana, has called time on her illustrious career for the national team. What have you made of her career? What do you make of her as she sails into the sunset? Noko played long enough for me to not really be interested in Banyana Banyana and then have an interest and then realize, oh, okay, I actually like this team. I actually like the brand of football. She actually played long enough where I was a bit maybe ignorant and didn't really appreciate the women's game. And after a while, after having turned my mind around, she was still there. Started off obviously as a striker, was banging the goals as much as, like I said, I didn't have my eye on them. Kept cheering over Noko Matlou, always scoring, always being on the score sheet and sometimes getting gluttonous amount of goals in certain matches. And she was really dominant in that position, right? And when I started to tune into Banyana more regularly, that's when she was at the twilight of her career as a striker. But the girl was so good that it was not the end of her career. She then went to play as a wing back. I think, Jay, that's amazing. That's a revelation, number one. Number two, the longevity of her career speaks volumes because, number one, the number of caps. Number two, her staying power in the national team. And just her being effective till the end because you have players where you're like, we want to play you, we like you, you've earned cult status or legendary status in the team, but you're not that good anymore. Whereas with Noko Matlou, we would just say at best, you can't score those goals anymore like you did, but there's always space for you in the Banyana shirt. So I think that's amazing, Jay. If you think about how everything happened much later and she stuck around for that, getting her first professional contract at the age of 35, that's crazy. Where she goes to play for IBA at 35, that's longevity. She won her first trophy with Banyana Banyana at the AFCON at 33. No, at 36 actually. At 33, she played her first World Cup. So these are all numbers that most players don't even last till, and she was still effective for Banyana Banyana. So Jay, she was a great ambassador for the game. She was great for the girls, got the girls dreaming, got the girls believing. And I like the fact that, Jay, we've come to a point where we've changed our minds into what our heroes look like, right? Because oftentimes footballers, remember you used to get derided for not being able to speak English very well. He's one of the players who, is Sagibo, and she was fine. And we've got to understand, not only via her, but throughout the entire world, that, you know what, you don't have to speak English. You embrace the people as they are. I think what Rasi once said when he was explaining the dynamic of his Springboks, we don't just get there because now we're all Springboks stronger together and we get along. There's someone someone else is from the farm. It's very different, if you understand. Someone else is from the hood, someone else is from the burbs, and they all speak different languages. They all have different cultural backgrounds, and they also have to somehow make it work. So with Noko Matlou, I understand that Jermaine is more marketable in terms of she can speak the English, she has got the long flowing hair, whatever. But Noko let her football speak, and you got to realize that, you know what, all that stuff doesn't matter because at the end of the day, you're just a footballer, and boy was she a good footballer. The numbers speak for herself in terms of caps, goals scored, longevity, being able to play in the local game, playing abroad as well, Jay. So I think you can't look at that career and scoff at it. You can't look at that career and belittle it. 174, I think that's the second most capped player, Jay, period, male or female in Africa. So that's amazing.
If you came to the career of Noko Matlou with Banyana Banyana, if you came across her in the latter times, the last 5 years,
the last 10 years even actually, and you just looked up her record. If you watched the team and you knew that, okay, that's one of our defenders, and then you looked up her record and you recognized how many games she's played, and then next to that, when you see the goal total, you would be utterly confused as to what is going on here. Particularly because it's not as if when you've been watching her as a wing back, she's been delivering goals, right? And when you then do dig into what transpired, how does she have 66, I believe, goals in her Banyana Banyana career while playing as a defender? You then uncover the fact that she was a striker before, right? Before she became a defender. And the thing is, we've seen players play multiple positions, and even in terms of being formerly an attacker and then becoming a defender. In my mind, the things that come to mind very readily is the boys from Tembisa. One Teti Mawa, or known as Utivo, and in the hood he was known as a pass master, as someone who plays in the middle of the park, right? But then when we saw him at the professional level in the PSL, we saw him play as a defender, as a right back for the most part. And then the other person I think of is George Moleg, who aptly named Umido because coming up through the ranks, to the youth ranks, he was a striker and a prolific one at that. And then when you saw him at Ajax Cape Town, he also was a right back and then settled into being a midfielder. And then if you think abroad, you think then in terms of transitioning because of age, because that is something that happens. That's something that happened with Noko Matlou, where you've got a Paolo Maldini, who is considered the best left back of all time in many circles. But then again, if you came to his career later towards the end, you saw him play as a left centre back. But that's a more conventional switch, right? You already are a defender and you are a great defensive left back or full back, and the switch to being a centre back is not as big a jump as what you see with Noko Matlou. Because even the guys I mentioned, that was, yes, at the PSL level. It was not at international level, because as a striker, right, she was not just she's an okay striker, she's a good striker, and it's like, man, we need someone to fill in at the back. She can play there as well. It's like, actually, this is maybe your best position. Because when she was playing as a forward, as far back as 2008, she becomes the first South African to win the Women's African Player of the Year, whether a male or female player. She was that good. She was dominant as a striker. I remember, and this was a time, as you say, where it was not maybe as fashionable for us to be watching Banyana Banyana. I know certainly not for me. But I knew of Matlou because she kept on making the news headlines, because she scored once again, and she scored multiple goals. And in that year, which culminated with her winning the Women's African Player of the Year, she was in the headlines so many times that you could not miss her, because she just kept on scoring. And then when you did catch her, whether it was in the highlights or, hey man, Banyana Banyana playing, let me actually see this Noko Matlou that keeps making the news headlines, she was utterly dominant. Like she was fast, she was powerful, she was athletic, and she was prolific, as I'm saying, in front of goal. And it's like, oh man, are we watching the greatest South African female player of all time? Is this someone who's going to go on and challenge the goal records of Uposha Modise? Didn't happen at the end, because she did then lose some of that athleticism. But to be able to transition from a prolific, a world-class striker to being a defender. You mentioned the fact that she signed her first professional contract in her late 30s, or in her mid-30s rather. That's as a defender. So she went from being international level world-class as a striker, and then in the latter parts of her career, she becomes a defender, and she's so good that she's playing in the Premier Division of women's football in Spain. And even as she calls time on her international career, she signed now again a 1-year contract in the second division of the Spanish league. So that for me, Chuck, in terms of when we talk about what a complete football player is, that screams complete football player. To be able to make that transition, that is the highlight for me in terms of her career. That how are you able to be that good as an attacker, as a forward, as a striker, a prolific goal scorer, and then you are just as good when you then become a defender, because it wasn't a matter of we just want to keep her around in the team, let's just find a position for her. No, she was better than everybody else she was competing against at that position. And I tip my hat off to her as she walks away, saying that she wants to make room for the newer generation to come through and take up the baton, because what a servant she has been, and and sometimes you say that, right, as the courteous thing to say, but in terms of Noko Matlou, what a career. As I'm saying, it still boggles my mind how you went from being world class at one position and a totally different position. You then continued and in the second half of your career, and that's what you became, a legend of note.
I mean, Jay, if you think about it, from coming close, if we could say that, like having our best display at the WAFCON, she was a striker. And then when she comes back to actually win it, she's making crucial saves to actually get us over the line. Then she's there in the World Cup in our deepest run, and you're like, Noko's been there at almost every milestone of this particular version. Desiree Ellis, in terms of what Banyana looked like. Every key milestone that we've achieved in terms of winning the WAFCON, going to the World Cups and scoring goals, making a noise on the continent, making a noise on the world. Noko's been there. And I think, man, when you actually look at her age, you're like, okay, I get it. You've had enough of this game because you've given us so much of your life. Whether it's a striker, whether it's a defender, it's all been world class. It's all been amazing. And I mean, hard to replicate that. I mean, if you were to take the striker career and I take the defender career, we wouldn't be upset. That's how good she was. Speaking about African exploits, Jay, and actually going to the World Cup as well. Our boys under 17s made it to the World Cup. They've qualified. But in the current showing of the under 17 AFCON, Jay, we've seen a couple of problems, right? They won their first game against Egypt, but then struggled when they played against, if I'm mistaken, Cameroon and now Burkina Faso with physicality. And I want to ask you this question, Jay. When you now think about beyond the borders, beyond the African continent, when you go into a big competition like the World Cup, do you think at some point the physicality or the lack thereof hurts us, or do you think we'll find a way around it?
It hurts us because we're not prepared for it. And my takeaway from watching the Amajimbos against Cameroon as well as Burkina Faso, first of all, what do they feed those boys in Africa, man? Like, I'm a small dude, right? Like, and I'm a small South African dude. I look at those boys and I think to myself, as a full grown adult, I would absolutely struggle physically against those kids. I don't even know if they qualify as kids. It's actually ridiculous when you see our players like lined up against them. You know, we just spoke about Noko Matlou. Like, remember when Banyana Banyana were lined up against Sweden in the World Cup? It was Sweden, right? Was it Sweden or no?
Yeah,
Sweden.
Yeah.
And at the corners, you see like Abu Team Bala when it comes to in comparison to the players that were marking on the Swedish side. It's the same thing with the Amajimbos. And the thing is, Chuck, right? We know that to be the case. That has been the case for eons. That is the case now, and I don't know, and unless as the generation of parents that we are becoming and going into the future, the nutrition is different or whatever the case may be. Oh, we have children with taller people. I don't know. We give the genetic pool a chance to thrive. Unless that happens, this is always going to be the case. And that's why I say, Chuck, it's a lack of preparation for me. It's not that we don't know this. And it's not for me a matter of, well, there's nothing we can do about it, right? Because we have seen other sides. You think of the Brazilians, you think then in terms of the senior side, the Spanish who won those Euros and the World Cup. They were on the smaller side. Your Xavis and your Nestas, and even if you go to Barcelona, your Lionel Messi's, they were more diminutive in size, right? But they weren't tiny in terms of like their body weight. So one, you can do something about that in terms of strength and conditioning, as well as nutrition. That, well, if they're not growing any taller, you can try make them stronger to at least be able to compete, to hold their own in duels and in the tackle, right? But for me, Chuck, when I say we're not prepared for it, is because how you mitigate that is the style of play. Because if you cannot go up against them physically, then you should be able to play around them. There were occasions in the game against Cameroon and even against Burkina Faso where you see the one-touch football, you see the movement, you see the third man runs, you see the associative play where those boys from those West African countries, they want to come hard, they want to come fast, they want to press, and we've been struggling against their press because it is ferocious, it is physical, and the moment that those teams played like that, the South Africans struggled. They struggled to keep the ball. Whether they couldn't win a second ball, they couldn't play out from the back. When, as I'm saying, whenever they were pressed, they lost the ball. You saw the winning goal by Burkina Faso. It's a mistake that's happening in the back because of the pressure. But as I'm saying, when you've seen the one-touch football, the thing that we would describe as a South African style, we've been able to play around them. We've been able to get behind the defense. And the thing is, there's not a lot of that happening in terms of this is pre-planned. It happens, it feels like, it looks like to me, off the cuff. That, well, when we can get that going, it works. And in my mind, it's why are we not training for that to be the case? And I don't think it's coming across as something that is instilled from development in the different clubs, and then when they come together as the under-17s. And given they don't come together often enough as the under-17s to develop the kind of chemistry or to develop that kind of style of play. And maybe that's something to look into. And I know it's hard to do, especially because at those ages, at 16, going into the latter years of the teenage years, they are becoming a part of the professional scene, and it's hard to just take them away for a camp. But we need those. Maybe when it is an international break, and if it's a question of these boys are contracted to professional teams, which a majority of them aren't, right? They're still in development ranks. There's an opportunity to take them and have camps and develop the style. So by the time you get to a tournament and you come up against the physically imposing sides, you know how to play around that. So it's a problem, it's a hindrance, but it's one that's been there, and at this point we should have a solution. I do believe the solution is their style of play, but the issue is that we have not taken a concerted effort to bring out that advantage for us.
Yeah, actually, I think it may be a problem going forward into the World Cup, as you detailed as well, because we're not prepared for it. And I think if you can't deal with it here on the African continent, when you go in Europe as well, because there are teams who play a quick and fast brand of football with the physicality, and how do you adjust to that? I just think maybe we need those Messi drugs, man, to just boost development.
What Messi drugs, Chuck?
Apparently,
we're not just injecting hormones into our boys. Like, Messi had a growth deficiency. It wasn't just, man, he's just on the shorter side. Let's try and make him as tall as possible.
You don't think that's a widespread problem in our country? Just because there's so many of us, we don't quite see it as a problem. That's because, Jay, when you think...
It isn't a deficiency. It's a genetic thing. We're just small.
But for the competition, it might be a deficiency. And I say this because, Jay, if you think about in that particular age group, right? But Mapena was a star for Sundowns. If you look at where he ranks amongst his own teammates, not the tallest. And when you go to Africa, you realize that they're much, much smaller. Then there's like Mfundo Vilakazi, Mdu Shabalala, Rele Mfukeng, all the stars that are supposed to shine bright, not necessarily on the larger side of life, right? Obviously, you've got your Mokwena and Vala already set up, who are big boys, your Lau Fosters and stuff like that, Evidence Mahopa. But the new kids on the block, the guys who are the hot property, and right now in the current squad, Emil Witboy, one of the smaller gents in the side. And so I think the thing is that Angaz, for whatever reason, the guys who are our talisman are not necessarily great, are not necessarily big, number one. Number two, I think as you're speaking about being prepared for it, I think also their opponents aren't necessarily large. If I go back to an episode I watched of Itiskitan, where Devin Hunt details how he found Mamenyang. He was like, I found this guy playing in the sand, and he was heading and doing all these physical things. And I'm like, great, in the PSL, he'll be great, because he knows what he's going to be dealing with back home. That he's going to be towering, he's going to be tall, he's going to have the biggest advantage when it comes to aerial presence. So we don't quite get tested, I think, often enough in terms of how do we deal with physicality, which is why I think it was a bit too late for under 17. But players like Abo Tushabalala, Abo Nabo Villaga, as small as they are, getting physical in the PSL, I think, pose them well. They get to understand that you have to go against man strength. And on the continent, even under 17, you have to go against man strength relative to how big these boys are. And I think we aren't prepared for that because we don't think about that, to be honest. We think that our brand of football will work just well enough. And when you come against a style that's contrary to what you guys are bringing to the party, then it becomes a problem, because there's only so many passes you can play. Because the other thing is that sometimes we overplay. Like in the game against Burkina Faso, the chances are creating, you guys, okay, play. Okay, guys, score, shoot, and we don't do those things. So if you're not executing your game plan very well, plus the physicality, it becomes a problem, because when you get to Europe, there are teams that are going to play fast and have the physicality as well. South American sides might have the same assets as well. So I think, Jay, we should be thinking about that long term. We should be thinking about, Hugo Bruce came to us and said, Guti, I know you guys play a good brand of football, but going to AFCON, I need bodies, I need big bodies. Urias Tole comes into feature and you realize he's not just units, but he's got footballing brains as well. I think we need to try build a profile like that in terms of, okay, we're not just scouting physical specimen, but we need to try find a balance in terms of, okay, when we're playing against Burkina Faso, make sure we've got this player, that player on. You guys will come through as subs, as our talisman. When we're playing Egypt, we'll play our faster guys and we'll play our regular style of football. We need to be able to adapt like that. But for as long as we go by one style of play, one brand or one type of footballer, we'll have problems. Because I think with the Barcelonas of this world, Jay, their benefits is having time to play together, understanding a system, and then being fruitful in the system. So I think it will be a problem going to the World Cup unless you practice this, which I don't think you quite have time for that under 17, unless you work with them quite early under 15. You know your core players, that these guys are most likely to be together under 17 onwards. So I think short of them doing this in their club sides at international level, it's quite hard to adjust to that. So I think it's the problem that's always going to be an issue for South African football. But as you said, style of play, tactics can work around that.
When you bring up Hugo Bros and how he then did select for physical attributes, unfortunately, what I think is going to happen with these under 17 boys is the ones who then do have that physical presence are the ones who are going to graduate to the very top. Because if you think about Bafana, the only players who would fit the mold of what you see amongst the under 17s in the majority, Urele and Ashwin, Apollos, right? Everybody else is, I would say, for a South African male, above average height and average build. And the thing about that is if you are going to be on the smaller side, you have to be exceptional. A Vitboy, for example, he looks like he is quite exceptional. The other players are good as well, right? At that age. And representing the under 17s, you didn't just happen upon that position. But the guys who are going to move up from there and be part of the national team in years to come, I think are guys like Martinez, no Hatebe as well, the goalkeeper, because you can see that they're going to get up to like 1.8 meters or whatever the case may be, which you require in the positions that they play. So yeah, those boys better pray for some growth spurts, or in the meantime, we're not dragging up our kids, Chuck. We're not dragging up our kids, damn it. But yeah, Chuck, hopefully as they are in the quarterfinals of the AFCON, they can continue down this path, and it will serve them well as well to go to the World Cup. We'll see how they perform over there. A team that is performing in a manner that is above average, in fact, at championship level pace. Orlando Pirates came through in the previous weekend with a 1-0 win against Polokwane City, Chuck, which means after 20 games, they have 46 points. And this is the 10th occasion where a team has collected 45 or more points in 20 games in PSL history. And the 8 previous occasions, I'll leave out the 9th. The 8 previous occasions where it has happened, that team has gone on to win the league title. The 9th and 10th occasions were, the 9th was Sundowns this season, the 10th being Pirates now. So one of them is going to win the league. So 9 out of the 10 times it's going to have happened, and 1 out of the 10 times this season it won't have happened. What is also true with the Orlando Pirates is they've now accumulated 15 wins in the PSL, whereas all of last season they only got to the 14 mark. And Chuck, I want to ask this question because we come into every season, who's going to challenge Sundowns? And the answer invariably is Orlando Pirates. And yet, if Orlando Pirates do not manage to win the PSL title this particular season, do they have a valid excuse considering the numbers and the pace that they are on?
Valid excuse. That's the way to put it. I want to say yes, because if you break your ceiling, perform better than what you've been doing over the last couple of years, you've made some substantial progress, because there's still about 10 games to go. They're obviously going to smash through that particular record. I don't think they get like another 3 or 6 points. They're going to absolutely smash that by even like 10 points or more.
Sorry, Chuck. I Sorry, I have to come in here. I have to come in here because the thing is, I have experience where this is concerned. And by this, I mean, like, I've had conversations with you, multiple conversations around multiple topics where sport is concerned or football is concerned.
Yeah.
And I know your positions, right? And this has not been your position before. When Manchester City are concerned, you have said you need to find a way. You've said you need to find a way. Like, if they're going to put up 99 points, you put up 100. If they're going to put up 100, you put up 101.
I get you. I've not finished establishing my point.
Please, okay. I'm sorry because I'm listening to you and I'm waiting for you to say what I've heard you say before. It's like, I need Chuck to stand on business, even though it is Orlando Pirates, the team that he supports.
And
go ahead.
And Chuck can also change his mind mid conversation. But here's what I'm saying.
That does happen.
It does happen, right? I'm saying if they've plateaued and yet again it's the same old Pirates like 50 points smashed by Sundowns over and over again, then you're like, guys, what's happening here, right? Hence why we started to say that, guys, the cups are nice, but we need to get the league. But here's the thing, Joey. As much as they've broken ground and they've broken new ground, they've smashed through the records, they're on course to get to like a record number of points. The truth of the matter is, you knew what was at stake. This is the Rulani, this is the Piso Musamani / Cardoso Sundowns, where you have to get 60 points plus to even compete. And knowing the landscape, it's not like all of a sudden we've been getting like 50 points and all of a sudden this season sokufuneka 70 like 50 sokufuneka 70. We've known the bar for at least 2 or 3 seasons. And so for that reason, Jay, the league was always going to be at 70 points plus or high 60s, to be honest. So that's the wording of the question, excuse, because if you break your personal records, you can't say that your failings need to be accompanied by an excuse. You tried your best. But given in terms of what it takes, and you knew what it takes, it's like going to a track meet and you know what it takes to break the world record. You can't say, but I won the race. If you were aiming for the world record, you know what the numbers are. And so going to this season, I don't think any of us thought to ourselves that, because Mangoba's at the helm, Sundowns are going to win the league with 55 points. None of us thought that. We thought Sundowns have the players, Sundowns have the continuity. You're going to need 60 plus points to win something. So on that count, Jay, excuse is such a hard word. I don't like that particular word.
Say it.
But yeah, I don't think it will still suffice because it's the same as the other seasons. It'll be a mirror copy of the other seasons in terms of you've got your MTN8, maybe you're on course for the Nedbank Cup, but you're far in the league. So if we do that yet again, you can't excuse that. It's harsh, but you can't.
It's valid for me. And this has been my position, right? And it's not just a matter of, well, if you lose, you lose. But the thing is, if the other team is putting up record numbers, and if what you are doing is historic, or rather is congruent to other champions historically, then I don't know how much more we can ask of you.
But other champions historically, how many years back? That's my whole argument.
The thing is, every other iteration of the PSL season, except for when Sundowns have been putting up 70 plus points, Chuck, it's not normal what Sundowns are doing. It's not normal what they've been doing. So this is not the seasons where Sundowns, for example, in the bubble where Kaizer Chiefs choked that away on the last day, or when Pirates had the opportunity going to the last 2 games in I forgot which season exactly it is, but I believe
one season prior to that.
I think it might be, yes.
Yeah.
But Sundowns had about 61 points, I believe, 60 or 61 points in that particular season. That's different to if Sundowns are putting 70 points on the board, or they are putting 73 points as they did last season. Man, to ask any other team to go out there and get 74, 75 points is hard. Like, it's the same thing as I'm saying with Manchester City, where if they have 99 points and you have 97 points, you cannot be asking a team to get 100 to win the league. I recognize that would be the requirement, right? But it's just a bar too far for me. Like, in terms of like where I can excuse it. See, when Pirates are finishing 23 points behind Sundowns, I can't excuse that. Mm-hmm. But and the thing is, maybe you can make the argument that it's mediocre to say, well, can they just close the gap? Well, if they're only 13 points or 8 points behind, that's a bit better. It's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, when every single time, right, where the data tells us, where the metrics tell us, where the numbers tell us, where it's facts. This is not a feeling. These are facts that every single time when 20 games were played and a team had 45 or more points, as Pirates do have this season, they have gone on to win the league. If the one time where it doesn't happen, that is the definition of an anomaly. This is the exception. And that's the thing about an exception. It's not something that happens all the time. In that one, it literally is going to be 1 out of 10 times. The 1 out of 10 times where it has happened that the team hasn't won, I can't look at them and say you should have done much more when you've done what history tells us is required to win the PSL title. Because after 20 games, Pirates are on 46 points. And if we did have 30 games this season, which it doesn't look like we'll probably have 28 games for each team because of Royal AM, they would have been on pace for 69 points after 30 games. The highest number of points a team has gotten without winning the league title is Chiefs with 63 points. Now, if you put 6 more points over that, and as I'm saying, if you're knocking on the door of 70 points, which is a mark that has only been breached by one team, not one time, but by one team, only Sundowns have been over the 70 mark point in PSL history. The record before that was 69 points. So if Orlando Pirates put up the most points by a team not named Sundowns in PSL history in a 30-game season, and they don't win the league, I can't ask them to do much more than that. The other team is just too much of a juggernaut, because before the loss against Orlando Pirates and Bas Bambel, right, in that second game against Sundowns in the league, Sundowns were tracking for around 80 points. You can't do much about that. There's not much you can do about that, Chuck.
Right? Except Bas Bambel. But as much as we're talking about that, Jane, Pirates are at a level where we drop points at Stellies. We're genuinely disappointed because we know what it takes and we know what this team is capable of. We dropped points against Cape Town City. We're disappointed because we know that we're chasing Sundowns. We're on track. We're close enough. So Jay, that's what the bar is, Jay. And whether it's a blessing or whether it's a cursing, they just so happen to exist in the era of this magnificent Sundowns side, and they must do what it takes to knock them down. I mean, for instance, right, let's go to other sports, Jay. In tennis, you keep saying to me that Sinner's right is good, but every time Alcaraz comes, he just doesn't show it. And so my point is, whether Sinner is good or not, he needs to learn how to knock down Alcaraz for the sake of the rivalry. Even before their time, Jay, in the era of Djokovic, Federer, and Nadal, obviously, most of those Grand Slams went to the three of those guys. But that's what it took to win a Grand Slam. If you want the US Open, you're going to face one of those three guys. You want the Roland Garros, it's one of those guys. Blessing or cursing, that's what it takes. You can't then say, I've won outside of those guys. I've won 500 ATP, 500 titles. I'm great. No. Did you do it when it was against Federer? Did you do it against Djokovic? No. So that's why your name is not on the honors list. So, Jay, that's the same thing with us. So, blessing or cursing, the PSL, I mean, I saw a tweet one time where that says when the PSL was fine. That's when Paris was ahead, I think, with Ajax below us with like goal difference or whatever. Like, yeah, it was fun then, but we were getting 50-something points. Now the gauntlet has changed. Now the bar has been raised. And Paris is up to it because they showed that they can. I mean, we're on course for a record number of points. Sharp. Sometimes we're on schedule to go on to 8 until we did our thing. My point is this, Jewuti. Yeah, eras come to an end. It's not good for us as fans to wait it out because this is dominance. We have to pull them down ourselves. That's the only thing I'm saying. We have to make it happen ourselves. If it takes 100 points to beat Pep, get 100 points. It's impossible.
You don't simply go get 100 points, Chuck. If I revisit the tennis analogy, for me, it's not just those guys are winning Grand Slams. It's Rafael Nadal on clay. That prior to him,
which is not normal, right?
The most Roland Garros titles was 6, and then the guy has got 14. So if guys walk in there and lose against him, I can accept that. I can accept that, like in his absolute pomp. It's the same thing as when Mourinho's Real Madrid, I think, scored 100 goals and had, I think they also had like 90 something points. Pep's Barcelona had 100 points, and it's like, what must they score 150 goals in the league? Like, what needs to happen? Like, Messi is scoring 73 goals. Like, must Ronaldo score 75? Like, I cannot be asking guys to be doing extraterrestrial stuff when there's already a team that is doing that. Like, it's a rare to almost impossible thing that you've got two teams or two entities that are putting up historical numbers at the same time. If the one team is putting up historical numbers and then you are doing something similar but just at a level below, but it's still considered historical, and you can't get there, that's because sometimes the bar is in the sky, Chuck.
I think
it's in the sky at the moment.
I agree with you. The bar's in the sky, right? But I think the reason why we revere and we laud the talents of Federer and Nadal and Djokovic is that they did it in the era of each other. If it was just Djokovic by himself, he'd dominate, he'd be great. But the fact that he did it whilst there was a Federer, whilst there was a Nadal, and vice versa, right?
Do you see what it took to break into the duopoly of Federer and Nadal? The guy then ended up being the greatest of all time. It's like, oh, okay.
If that's what it takes, Chad, because think about it, right? Whether you fall on the Messi side of the argument or Ronaldo side of the argument, those guys pushed each other. That's why the last 15 years have dominated football, right? And whether you want to say Messi's got 7, he should have given others to Lewandowski, which is what I think. At the end of the day, at some point, winning just the league and 50 goals is not enough because the guy won the Champions League. Now you need to get a Champions League. Now you must get a Euro. Now you must get a Copa. Now you must get a World Cup. And at that level, you're like, okay, those guys are great.
Something you've never had to do before. That's the thing.
And that's in this era.
That's why Neymar suffers under the weight of, oh yeah, but he's not Messi or Ronaldo. Yes, he's not Messi or Ronaldo, but like you can't say, oh man, he didn't live up to, which is a whole other debate, right? Like my position is like, yeah, he didn't live up to expectations. Like, well, if absent of that, you look at that career, that's a glistening career. It's the same thing where Sundowns need to come back to the pack, Chuck.
How does that happen?
I don't think you can just go chase them down if they are still putting up 70 plus points on the board.
So if they don't self-destruct, it's impossible.
It's not impossible, right? But if it doesn't happen, if you do not get up to those numbers, it's valid for me because nobody else in history has been able to do that. So you are falling short of something that's never been done before. That's valid for me. What you actually are doing is something where in every single season, bar this one, if Sundowns do go on to get 70 plus points, whatever the case may be. Last season, the season before that, when it's 73 and it's 71 points, your points total would have been enough to win the league. I can't bemoan that you have not done enough. I can't say you should have done more. You should have done more to win the league, yes, but I can't look at that and say and categorize it similarly to the other seasons prior to that, where, well, I mean, Sundowns have 59 points or 60 points and you couldn't do it. That's a different conversation to, well, over the average mark of around 60 points to win the league, they've gone and added 10, 15 more points, and then now the requirement is that you're asking for too much.
But I mean, I can't be a fan.
Maybe not asking for too much, but as I'm saying, like, I look at that and say, it's valid. You really did what was your best and what was the best of everybody else historically, and you still couldn't do it. The bar is too high in that case.
You know what?
I'd excuse them.
This is from a Sundowns fan because everyone else has been playing the bridesmaid to your champion status. We're tired of watching and being second best.
Which is valid.
We want to do something. Speaking about Paris, Jay, right? José Riveiro has announced that officially at the end of the season, he will leave the Buccaneers and go back to Spain because he misses his family. At least that's what we've heard, right? I saw a video where says Paris, because he's got credibility to his name.
Foul from Bobby.
I don't know. But the question is, Jay, with this current Paris side and with the points tally that you've listed right now, with the MTN8 in the bag, 2 other MTN8s from prior seasons, 2 other Nedbank Cups in other seasons, still in Africa, still in the Nedbank Cup, and still chasing Mamelodi Sundowns. If he leaves, does he walk away as the best manager that Paris has ever had?
Has to win the league or the Champions League, and then that cements it for me. The 2 biggest prizes are the league, and we can say now the Champions League, right?
Yeah.
Because of the many occasions that Sundowns have been there, and also because when Pirates have been in the Champions League, they've tended to do well. And now as well, we look at them, and we had set the bar for them that in the Champions League you have to get out of the group stages. They did, but then we have since revisited those goals based on what we've seen from the Pirates team and based also on what we see on the continent with regards to the opponents and where they are on the side of the draw and all those things. And it appears that they are good enough to get to at least the final. And in the final, they're going to face either Esperance, Sundowns, or Al Ahly. And they're good enough to win that final. One, because they won finals and they won finals under this coach. And also they have beaten the Sundowns in the final. And also we saw them going to Cairo and winning over there. And so this team is good enough to do that. So if they go on to do that, or they go on to do what I've just said is the impossible, and haul in Sundowns, or if Sundowns implode, whatever the case may be, then yes. But you have to have one of the league title or the Champions League. And still for me, then it's Krol, right? Because Krol did manage the league title. And given that the back-to-back trebles, the second of that is under Julio Cesar Leao.
Yeah.
That's still Krol's team for me. Yeah, and yes, I know officially, and I know that the record books will say that he was not their coach. But even if you speak to some of his former players, which we've had the opportunity to do, they'll tell you that they were on autopilot that second season. It was carrying on what they had built under Krol, which enabled them to go win a second treble. So for me, Chuck, it's still Ruud Krol. But as I'm saying, because you do have to factor in the fact that officially the one treble was under Krol, and it happened in his third season prior to him leaving. And when you look at the 3 seasons under Coach Riveiro, it's five cup titles now, and that is 5 beats 3. And if you do add anything else at this point, whether it's the Nedbank Cup, whether it's the league title, whether it's the Champions League, that's 6, which is the same number as those back-to-back trebles, of course, right? And he's officially been the man at the helm for all of those. But in order to sit at number 1, he's a very close second. So that's why I'll say it. But in order to sit at the very head of that table, you need either one of the league title or the Champions League. What I'll say for Riveiro, he sits at the same table as Krol and Micho in terms of Pirates fans. Pirates fans are such an interesting watch for me, because when they love a coach, they absolutely love a coach. And the coaches that they love in the PSL era is Krol, is Micho, and it's Riveiro. Because even when Riveiro was announced to leave, right, and the question was who should take up the baton after him, some Pirates fans brought up Micho, and I was like, I don't even know where Micho is in the world, and yet Pirates fans are still thinking about Micho because they absolutely love Micho. And you saw the emotions pour out as well when it was officially announced that Padre is leaving. There's quite an emotional tie to the coach, as he does have with the fans as well. So that is something that also I do believe to be taken into consideration. That it's the same thing I said about Klopp. That Klopp seems to have a mystical connection to the Liverpool fans, because Liverpool as a club, there's just something there. There's just something magical there, and Klopp understood it at a level where it's beyond just winning and losing, and that feels the same for me where José Riveiro is concerned, and Escotini and the fan base there, and everything that is like the black and white, and the Pirates, the Buccaneers, if he had the language, he would say goodbye Kepul. He understands that at its core. It feels like to me more than any other coach even I've seen coach Pirates in the PSL era. I feel like there is a level of mythos that has returned, because you think of Orlando Pirates, you think black and white, you think I was having this conversation on another platform, Guti Escotine. You realize where you're inviting people to, Escotine, what? And as I'm saying, it's the black outfits, it's the skull and the crossbones. And when you get that right, it is intimidating. And I feel this coach has been able to pull those things together. So, and that as I'm saying, that's something that counts. But in terms just on training the side's gaffer, he's still just a tad behind Krol for me.
When you talk about the connection with the fans and being one with the club, I was watching Bucks camp, and I remember him saying a couple of things. And then he'd be listing a couple of things with Sati Sharp. And I'm like, Sharp, that's a South African thing. So, Sharp. Basically, whatever, Sharp. So he's definitely taking in the culture. He's definitely speaks about cooking and stuff like that, where he understands the language and he knows what works with the crowd. He knows what works with the supporters, the fan bases. And for that reason, Jay, he's a very good coach. If you look at the cups that we've won, MTN8, Nedbank Cup, he's a very good coach. It was a long time since Paris won silverware. And so when he brings that, it's magical. When you go on that run, it's magical. Coming into this season as well, if you keep listening to Fumani talking Buccaneers, Logati, it seems like a magical season. At this point in time, Jay, I don't know if Paris win everything, but to be honest with you, it might sound a bit delusional because I'm a Paris fan chasing Sundowns. I don't see much heartbreak coming towards the end of the season. I think Paris will win something. Either a league, either a Nedbank, either a cup.
This is on recording.
It's a feeling.
We are recording.
It's a magical feeling. If you go to Escotini for the CAF Champions League game, it's a feeling in the amongst the fans in the crowd that Pirates are onto something special. And maybe that's what it's felt like to be a Sundowns fan for as long as they've done it. That we're gonna do this. We've got this in the bag. But it's the feeling that it's brought to us, that belief once again that Pirates are doing something. Because I mean, we were as fickle as Kaizer Chiefs fans. Something good comes, we're happy. Something bad comes, we're like, get that coach away. Because we've gotten some momentum, which I think is very key, Jay. Because we've had success, Nambo Micho win this, and then it gets dismantled. This player leaves, that player leaves, that player loses form. We're back to square one. And as Pirates tend to do, we sign like 5 players, sign 6 players, and you're like, this is a new side altogether. But continuity, Jay, with what we've seen from Mokro, what we've seen from Riveiro right now, is the key to all of this, right? But I tend to side with you, Jay, when it comes to the overall achievements of the treble. That's amazing. When you look at that particular makeup of that side, the players who are in that side, Awope, Nawe Rasmas, the pivot of Manyisa and Ujali, Happy Chele, Unzuri, as we I know he was Unzuri all along, as post his career I heard go to our keepers nicknamed Unzuri. I think that's a better side in terms of what he's built, hence why they continued even after a different manager, and they also go on autopilot and do it. So I think, Jay, you have to get a league. If he gets like the league or the CAF, then we don't even have to speak about it. He is, as you've also outlined. But I think at this moment in time, Jay, that hello ground of being able to say after 30 games, we sit on top of the pile. That's amazing, because you can always make excuses or build a credible argument for a cup. You played Marques, then you played Free Stars, then you play whatever. You couldn't go to the gauntlet of Chiefs and Sundowns and SuperSport. Whatever. You can make those arguments, but in the league, you play everyone. You only get 3 points. And so I think if he does that, then case closed. But for now, Jay, I think my legendary status goes to Rudy Goro.
Yeah, Chuck. My favorite Pirate sides are the ones that involve Steve Lokole, because as a young and Steve was everything to me, right? Those sides with the Wasempem, with the Williams, Okpara, Ustrepezana, but that wasn't coupled with winning all that much.
Yeah,
I think this is the most special time I've observed Orlando Pirates in the PSL era. Because I've had the opportunity to be in Orlando as well, and it's goosebumps when that drum starts playing and it reverberates around that stadium. And you've also got the cult heroes. You've got like Utito, right? Ambulance, Sitimbis, and you hear the chants from the crowd. You've got the youngster who also is a cult hero in Urele Mufukeng. And then you've got the Cubs as well. The good times have been back with Orlando Pirates with the winning. And as then I'm saying, the coach's connection to the players and to the fans, and how he's connected the fans and the players. It has been the most special time in the PSL era in my time watching Orlando Pirates. Chuck, something that is maybe not feeling as special as it used to, according at least to Gary Neville, get our views on that as well, is football in the modern era, right? And the idea that players have become robotic and maybe overly coached and too much reliant on being system pieces. Do you think football has lost something? Do you think there's magic that has been removed from it? Is it still as beautiful as when Pele dubbed it the beautiful game?
What he also did say, right, Jay, is that everyone wants to be like Pep, and they're poor versions of that. And I think that's what we're seeing. And because they are imitations of Sorry, continue. Because they're not quite cracking it, they're poor versions of that, then we'll lose something, because it's not quite that. I mean, Lamal is special, but if he's trying to be the next Messi, then he's never going to be that. But if he's going to be, Lamal, then we're like, okay, that's something special. And that's what's supposed to be with every team or every version of every side under each manager. But if we're all trying to do 3-4-3, let's do the Pep Guardiola thing. Let's do a player who's going to invert, a player who's going to be like, guys, we can't always all do the same tactics, because for that kind of play, the outcomes are that, Jay, you get a Ruben Amorim who says, I need players who are going to play in my system. Like, so really, are you telling me that the players that you have can't do it at all? If they can't do your system, they can't play football. And if I look at it from that lens, Jay, you're like, you can't work with them. These players are broken. They can't fit in your system. Therefore, it doesn't work. If I think about how Jose Mourinho kept saying, the reason why Luke Shaw had a good game is because I was on the touchline coaching him. And you're like, so if you don't tell him anything, he's not going to play a good game. And so I think we've lost a lot of magic yet, because the machine of Pep Guardiola was magical. it was the envy of lots of sides, lots of teams that you look at them and you're like, well, I get it. When I saw a video explaining how tiki-taka worked, talking about it's not just passing in triangles, but on every channel, right? If you speak about vertically, you can only have 2 players per channel, whether you're talking about the either wings, the half space, or the center. Per horizontal line, only maximum 3 players. And you're like, those are the moving parts. And you're like, at that level, then I think of Tabang Munar Magati when the coach speaks about big words, players don't understand. And he just has to dumb it down. I know, coach says you're playing well. Because it's just too technical at that point. It's just too intricate at that point. Whereas it is the beautiful game. So it's one of those things where, Jay, you think about it, Guti, everyone's on Studio Ghibli. Like, oh, that's a great animation style. Let's all do it. You see it on social media. We're all doing it. And so because I can't draw and create something like that, I'm going to go on the app and do the same thing as everyone else. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, it's lost its magic because everyone else is doing it. So I think, Jay, I definitely agree with him. I mean, you were speaking about, I think, a couple of weeks back that we don't have wingers that take players on one-on-one anymore. We don't have those magical, like the Hazards are gone. They're gone because Hazard has to track back now. Hazard has to play in a particular role. You can't just give Hazard the ball and say, play and have fun. So I think, Jay, yeah, we've lost something in the game. It's what you see, what the game has become tactically is what you see on VAR as well. I saw a decision, someone was offside. And like, guys, switch off the machines if that's what we're judging it on. On your ear. You're offside based on the size of your ear. So, yeah, man, it's become too technical. It's no longer magic.
Yeah, the artists, I say, and I've been promoting this for years. The artists are gone, and it's sad, Chuck, because essentially what football is, it's a children's game, right? And I'll tell you, as a child, when I most enjoyed playing football was when it was raining, right? And like just you tackling each other in the mud, or if you playing on the gravel, on the sand, and you do a skill, then someone goes sliding across, you absolutely really send them to not the kitchen, but kitchens 10 streets down, you know. And in the professional sense, Chuck, we watch sport as an escape, right? We watch it, we root for our teams and we wear the colors. And at the professional level, I've said this, and I stand by this, that we play to win. That is the goal. That's why guys, why it's commercialized and guys are paid, and it's their job. And so, like, winning is everything. But at the same time, it's also entertainment. You also do want to see entertainment, and that's why you have had a category develop of players the streets will never forget, you know, because there's something about that. Even like in the worst case scenario, even if it does not lead to winning football, it leaves a mark. Like it stains you as someone who loves the game and is watching what is happening. But we've had players who would, quote unquote, fit that mold, but also led to winning football. You think of Brazilian Ronaldo, prior to Messi, my favorite player of all time, you know, and you think of your Ronaldinho's. That I say the reason Ronaldinho is not in the GOAT conversation is because he didn't do it as long, but for as long as he did it, it was entertainment. Like we used to call in our friendship group, him or Zidane like Morena or Paul, meaning like the god of football, you know, the king of football. Because, and it was not because, oh man, look at him sticking pressing to his role, look at him pressing with everything that he has, or look at him putting up the goals and assists, you know, the stats that we absolutely love in this day and age. But it was magic when you see like Ronaldinho's highlights, for example. You see him doing what he does to Gattuso, the double step over. You see him like taking the ball over guys, where he's looping it over his head and he's looping it back over his head. It's not going anywhere, mind you, but it gives you a feeling, Chuck. It's like, oh man, these guys are able to manipulate the ball in ways that you can't even imagine that you can do that. And it's like, that's awe-inspiring. And my type of footballers are your Eden Hazards. You know, like I absolutely loved Coutinho at Liverpool. And just being able to be given the space where you can do something off the cuff, because there's a genius that comes across in your mind in the middle of the game. Because what inspires a guy to say, let me take them all on? You know, it's something that is not available to you and I. But now, if you were to attempt that, because the thing is, that's a risky approach. And if they win the ball off of you, you're out of position, you know. And it's like, look what's happening with our rest defense now, and you're not there to plug the hole. And the fact that you see guys, like, I'm an Arsenal fan, I watch Arsenal, and I've said to you this entire season that it's so risk averse, the football that Arsenal play. You see instead of going into the block, they want to go like outside of it. They want to restructure. Let's pass it back. Let's build up again. Let's get into our structures again. And it's so mind numbing. Like you get that the players are chess pieces on the board for coaches, and yes, the one who's most tactically astute is the one who's invariably tends to come out on top, coaching against those other minds. But it has become too technical. It has become too rigid. It has become too robotic, and we like it. It's great, right?
Yeah.
But that's also why you saw the trend of the Barclays men at some point in the season, looking back at an era in Premier League football where guys were just going up and down, up and down.
It was like, SG. I'm hitting this.
There was some chaos into it. There was some this is not as controlled as maybe it can be, or we've seen it become. But that's good because and that's what art does. When you are looking at an art piece, or you're watching a movie, or you're listening to a particular song, it's not because it follows a very like a step by step routine in terms of what makes it good. It's because it speaks to you, Chuck. It it invokes emotions where you weren't even prepared for that. Like we're going into it, like the moment the beat drops, like, oh, hold on, wait a minute, what's happening here? So football is missing some of that in latterly in what we are watching as the product, and it's sad. It really is sad.
Yeah, Jay, when you speak about music, what we're currently producing is the radio hit. Give us something that the teens are gonna bump to. But sometimes you listen to the album, you skip the radio hit. Like everything else, that's good.
Yep.
I see the radio hit, everything else is good. And I think what coaching has done is interfere with the magic. There are players that were so good, you're like, no, just go play. I don't want to tell you too much because I don't want to confine you. Go and play. And I mean, when you think about that goal, Arsenal, that's finished off by Jack Wilshere. You don't coach that. That's the players just understanding each other and playing and doing magic. There's Zlatan overheads. When you look at Messi going past what 8 players, you don't coach that. That's magic. Let the guy do what he has to do. And so when you got your too many hands in the pie, then you're like, it's like the pie down the road. It's like the pie over there. It's like the pie. It's not like my mama's pie. When my mama makes it, it's different because that's how she makes it, And so we've lost everything because what we've become, Jay, is, I know when you speak about the Ronaldo you enjoy, CR7, the one in the United gear, not the second coming, but the original stint at United. When he goes to Real Madrid, he becomes a goal scorer. You're like, okay, he's still good, Ballon d'Or level, cool, but that's the one I preferred watching. And it's what we've all become in terms of, okay, that's silky smooth, but what wins you games? What wins you Ballon d'Ors? It's that. Okay, let's do that. And after a while, you realize there's no genie here, And so I think, Jay, we have lost the magic. It's very rigid. I don't know how you counter that. I don't know how you come back and produce that magic because the machine will keep producing, Hence, the Brightons can go up against all these other teams because the system works, But sometimes you have to bring a bit of magic, and I don't know how you do that.
Chuck, I heard Thierry Reed speaking about the fact that between 2002, I believe, and 2006 or 7, in that period, he really felt untouchable. And when you recall that time, or you watch the highlights, if you didn't have the privilege of watching him, there are times where Thierry Reed is in between two guys, and he puts his foot on the ball, right? And he's kind of not doing anything to advance the play. Like there's just an arrogance that comes across where I'm really enjoying doing this right now. Or you see him, as I'm saying, he's doing keepy ups, running with the ball. Or he's doing the pass where he's sliding his right foot and then he hits it with his left foot and looking in the other direction and hitting it to his teammate. But then you've also heard Thierry Henry speak about the fact that when he got to Barcelona, even though he scored a goal, Pep was mad at him because you were not supposed to be there. And I was like, what are we doing, man?
Yeah,
like what are we doing at this point? It's like, nah, like it might be more useful or lead to greater results, but at what cost, And it feels like it's at the cost of the soul of the game. And yeah, man, it's as I'm saying, like I say, it's sad. It's not what it used to be, and maybe we're sounding like old heads and like, back in my day, it was so much better. But I really do believe, sitting here right now, that the football is still great, right? Don't get me wrong, but there was a level beyond this when there was the opportunity given to the talents to showcase their talent.
Speaking on that, in terms of talents, I think we once had an argument, and you were surprised when I said to you that I might just have picked KDB over Hazard just because of consistency, which speaks that magic versus output, right? And obviously, you're firmly, in terms of the Belgian grace, you're firmly on the side of
I love Hazard.
Hazard. Right? And I was like, I know Hazard does magical things, but who can do it almost in any position, can give you so much set pieces, whatever, as Kevin De Bruyne, and that's because he's become a machine, a byproduct of just so many great things. He has to then, at this point in time, call time on his City career, not because he has said, guys, I'm good, I'm looking to seek greener pastures elsewhere. It's because between Pep Guardiola and the directors of football at Man City, they're like, you know what? Let's not renew. We've seen the best of Kevin De Bruyne, and that's that. What do you make of this end to his career, number one, and number two, the fact that he was decided by management instead of the player himself? What do you think they've seen, and have you seen the same?
I told you when we had the debate around Salah, is the guys who power waves with the money, ultimately, they're the ones who have to make that decision, right?
Yeah.
And it is the right time for KDB to leave because in the previous video as well, we were doing the keep or sell where Manchester City are concerned. I did say Kevin De Bruyne is his time at Manchester City has come to an end, and it's been a glorious decade. He's absolutely won everything, and in a period that rivals, the only period that truly rivals the dominance we saw with Manchester United under Sir Alex, and maybe in some respect in a shorter time scale, even more dominant. You know, six titles in 7 years. The first team to win the league title 4 times in a row. There's the treble. There's the local treble as well. Absolutely won everything, and with KDB at the heart of that, he is City's greatest player for me, and that's been something that's been up for debate. This is the greatest era, of course. Is it Aguero? Is it David Silva? Is it Yaya Toure? Is it KDB? Some might say, is it Company as well? And he's been there during those stints, right? And for me, don't ask me who is left out. For me, he's in the Premier League all-time 11 as one of the, if we're playing 4-3-3, as one of the 3 midfielders. Because I remember when I first then saw KDB for Manchester City in terms of his greatness, he looked like an amalgamation or a love child between David Beckham and Stevie G. In terms of like how he was able to deliver the ball with accuracy, with power, with precision, and he was also able to carry the ball, and he was also able to hit the ball with the ferocity that he did. And if you need him to be a goal scorer, I'll give you that. If you need him to be a creator, he'll do that. He's got the second most assists in Premier League history behind Ryan Giggs, whose record is never going to be touched because Giggs played forever, you know. But in terms of the assists per or minutes per assist, he's easily lapping the field, and it's not just the raw numbers. Kevin De Bruyne did give me that feeling when watching him as well, in terms of, man, this guy can play. Yeah. This dude can play, because when he got signed for 50 million, it's like you did not see him at Chelsea, but then you heard that he was at Chelsea. He didn't cut it at Chelsea, went to Germany, and we kind of know what happens in Germany. You know, like it's super soldier serum that you get over there. Like the numbers uploaded because the German league is just fast and loose. Is he really gonna cut it? And 50 million at that time, like, do they really want to pay this amount? And then it turned out to be a bargain. So I think, Chuck, it's one of the most dominant careers we've seen in the Premier League. Definitely in my eyes, the greatest player City have ever produced. He's in, as I say, my all-time Premier League 11. And in terms of calling time on his City career, I think it is the right time. The idea has been floating around for so many circles that you leave the game before it leaves you, or a great dancer knows when to leave the stage. Where this level is concerned, I do think that time has come for Kevin De Bruyne. And whether this season or the last season and a bit, he's not quite been KDB as you've known him, I think that's not something that is going to come into consideration in my mind in terms of his legacy at Man City, because, as I'm saying, he was absolutely riveting and absolutely dominant in his absolute pomp at Manchester City.
Look, when you look at Pep Guardiola's successes, right, Barcelona was spoiled, right? I would have wanted to say at the center of his success at Barcelona was Messi, but there was also Xavi, right? At the center of his success at Bayern Munich, there was Thiago. There was also Rana was the right back.
Philip
Lahm as well. When you come to Man City, the main guy definitely is KDB. And I'll keep echoing these words until something happens that's good for Man United. Eras come to an end, and I believe with the departing of Kevin De Bruyne, this era has come to an end because
I just signal it, eh?
Yeah, because as you were listing the great players, the Yaya Toures, the David Silvas, the companies, Agueros, he was there with all of them. And when they were good, it's because they were there alongside Kevin De Bruyne. So when he leaves, you ask yourself, who else in world football is good enough to come to City and build around? So, I mean, there are tens of players who can still be good and prove us wrong, but he was something special. So when he departs, and if you think about his level, right, it's not. He can still play for another Premier League side and still be good, right? But at the level where we know Kevin De Bruyne to be, he's not that anymore. Unfortunately, the injuries have ravaged what we know him to be and what he has done for City. Because if I think about it, Jay, I think it was because of COVID and an injury hit. He came back and said, because of what has happened, I'm going to play one more year than I already had planned to do, one more year. And then injuries hit him even more. So I don't know what he's going to do with his career at this point in time. It's a shame, actually, when you think about it. But always in our minds, Jay, was the goals against Real Madrid in the Champions League, I think quarterfinals, where you're like, okay, City put on a masterclass. At the heart of that, Kevin De Bruyne. I don't know if...
and there were question marks in terms of, is he a big game player?
Yes. Those question marks actually followed him a lot around, but in the Premier League, definitely, without question, he delivered. It's in the Champions League, right, obviously. I don't know if I recall this correctly, but in the game last, he won a 6-1 by City. Did he not score the first goal? There was a hit that he hit outside the box, just under the crossbar, against David De Gea. I don't know if that signaled the first goal of the 6. And I was like, here we go again. And those memories are never good. But he was such an exceptional player, Jay, for Belgium, for Man City. To a point where, Jay, if you think about when he was partnered with David Silva, he let him shine, but was still a very good player. When Haaland came, he became his running mate. When Yaya Toure was there, not quite at the same peak, but he was still there in and around the side. Vincent Kompany was his leader, eventually succeeds him to be the leader as well of Man City. So you think about what he was and what he's become for City, almost akin to Noko Matlou, but Noko Matlou is very special. Can't be touched, that one. But I think Kevin De Bruyne has been special, Jay. As you said, goals, assists, just the fact that he can do just about anything, anywhere, the range of passing, the range of shooting. I think he was a pleasure to watch. As much as you hate Manchester City winning everything, you look at Kevin De Bruyne, you're like, but I like watching his football. And so that's the contrast that you have, right? So I think when he leaves, it's a shame for the game, it's a shame for Man City. But maybe finally eras have come to an end. Maybe with Sundowns. I don't know how many players need to leave Sundowns. Maybe that's what needs to happen for everyone to catch up. But yeah, I think things have changed majorly on the blue side of Manchester.
Yeah, Chuck. As you mentioned, whether he's playing with Silva and Silva's playing just ahead of him, or he's paired with a Gundogan, or he's asked to be the second striker, or when Haaland comes, he's drifting to the right hand side and is delivering those crosses, and maybe, which is quite the accolade, right? It's of course up for debate, but you might say Kevin De Bruyne is the greatest passer in Premier League history, which in football just is it's a significant title to hold, and I think Kevin De Bruyne, he definitely has his name in the hat, and he might be the guy who sits on top of that pile. And what a truly great Premier League career it has been for KDB. It has been a pleasure to watch him neutrally. I think as people who support other teams, not so much, which is a testament to his greatness in terms of how much he terrorized your team, or you did not look forward to a game against City, particularly because of the Ginger Ninja in the middle of the park for Manchester City.
Ginger Ninja, we won.
I had to get Chuck. That you're right. That is the man he has replaced in that midfield three. One ginger for another.
Blasphemy, I tell you.
You've come to the end of this particular episode. Thank you for being with us up to this point. Thank you for riding with us, continuing to do so. If you are new here or you have been a returnee but have not yet subscribed to the channel, please do so. Please do click on the subscribe button. Please do like and comment on the content. We absolutely love hearing from you. Share it far and wide as well. And if you do want to continue the conversation with us on social media platforms, you are very welcome to do so as well. You can find us at 2UpFrontPod across every social media platform. And you can find me at J_Mzulu. You can find Chuck at Chuck2Up. From myself, Jay, I'm outie.
In an episode of Goodbyes, we get to say goodbye to Kevin De Bruyne as he leaves Man City, José Riveiro as he leaves the Pirates, Noko Matlou, who was 2008 Women's Player of the Year, WAFCON winner, scores lots of goals. These, madam, are your flowers. Goodbye. Bye.